Kangaroo Studios, the AusBiz COB is the key stuff you need to know about the day in business and finance.
Hello, welcome to the COB this Tuesday afternoon. I'm Juliette Sarli. Great to have your company. Let's have a look at where the local market is finishing the day's trade. It's been a positive one, shrugging off that weakness from Wall Street overnight, really focusing here on our own corporate earnings. It was a very busy day today. The CBO 200 there heading into match off up 0.7%, a similar gain on the S&P ASX 200, which is up 62 points heading into match off. 9,165 is where it sits, crossing back above its 20-day moving average. Most of the sectors higher today, in fact 9 of the 11, just a small switch out of REITs, and the energy sector being weighed down by weakness in global oil prices, which slipped with investors taking profits after recent gains and ahead of the announcement of further possible US sanctions on Iran. Gold futures, though, at their highest in more than 3 months. Let's get in then to some of the themes of the day which really dominated sentiment. Consumer cheer. We had consumer confidence, that weekly read, hitting its strongest level since February, which is encouraging news given it was at 50-year lows. Still pretty pessimistic, though. I had a great chat with Neha Sharma from Westpac about what she thinks ahead of the all-important inflation data coming through for July as well. You can catch that interview, of course, online, ausbiz.com.au. Coles cashing in, the supermarket giant coming through with a near 14% rise in underlying profits. So that strips out those costs associated with what it saw with the $235 million hit from a federal court ruling claiming that it had underpaid thousands of workers. Coles saying it's fixed those pay systems that caused the problems, and despite the hefty payout, it still rewarded shareholders with a dividend. And also a bit of a bounce, our third theme of the day, Bitcoin riding that debasement trade to a 3-month high above $80,000. That is the first time we've seen that there for the Bitcoin bulls since mid-May. Let's get into the sectoral moves. I mentioned nearly every sector moving higher today. Healthcare in particular looking really solid. Fisher & Paykel up by around 1%. It reported today as well. Let's flip the board and have a look at how the tech stocks did. WiseTech coming through with its numbers tomorrow. It's up 4.4% ahead of that. Flipping the board again and having a look at what we're seeing with the banks, which were all pretty positive as well today. Macquarie Group there up with a gain of around 2%. I will note as well that BHP hit another record today, which really helped out the overall sentiment in the materials space. But let's have a look at what else we're looking at this afternoon, including some of the corporate news, with Woodside Energy reporting stronger first half earnings and a solid dividend. Shares, though, a little bit weaker. Coles, I mentioned, came through with its earnings, shares up 4%. ARB, well, it reported weaker full year 26 earnings amid softer four-wheel drive sales, but it did have a positive reaction to its result from the share market. G8 Education swinging to a loss after writing down underperforming childcare centres, but shares were up with the outlook better than expected. And SiteMinder declining today. It halved its annual loss with revenue rising 19%. Elsewhere, Horizon announced a $250 million share buyback. We also were looking at Zip securing $300 million in lower cost US funding through its asset-based securitization. AUB was a front runner as well, forecasting underlying profit growth of up to 18%. And Sky City Entertainment, they're rejecting 2 takeover approaches as too low. It's instead going to pursue asset sales and a strategic review of its Adelaide casino. Scentre Group, though, its shares fell 1.6%. It did lift earnings and distribution guidance, and Westfield occupancy hit a record 99.8%, with specialty sales continuing to grow. I spoke with the CEO, Elliot Rusinoff, who says record visitation and near full-time occupancy are translating into stronger sales.
Equivalent to around 10.5 million people every week coming to a Westfield destination across Australia and New Zealand. And that's translating into a record amount of sales that are being generated by our business partners, hitting an annual number of $30.3 billion. And we now have occupancy at 99.8%, practically full. Rents are escalating at 5.5%. New leases are being signed at an increase of 3.7%. And that's leading to earnings growth for our shareholders and an increasing confidence of being able to continue to deliver that in the second half of this year.
All right, that was Elliot Rusinoff, the Scentre Group CEO. You can catch that full interview on ausbiz.com.au. But now let's welcome to the COB Kai Chen from MPC Markets. Kai, great to see you. Such a busy day, but a really solid one today.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it's probably been one of the best earning days overall in the market for about 2-3 weeks, right? So, we are seeing very good, strong rallies in the resource sector, especially in gold, as well as in, for the large mining stocks like BHP. BHP is almost at, highs, and it's led by copper growth and as well as the gold prices as well coming back. So, very solid performers. We're seeing, the resurgence of healthcare as well. And, some of the larger healthcare stocks, of course, CSL, Cochlear, it's obviously had a very difficult time in the last half year, but we're finally seeing a bit of recovery from it. And, they've definitely been underpriced over the last quarter. But, we're seeing stronger numbers coming out.
Yeah, so that's the healthcare sector looking pretty good. What about the banks, though? Still some valuation concerns here.
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely facing some structural tailwinds. Given the budgetary changes, the lower mortgage applications, I think this is probably going to stick around for a little while until it goes through the market, right? So currently not too much positive sentiment in the banking sector.
BHP, I mentioned, hitting another record. We had their earnings last week. We spoke to the CFO, Vandita Pant. What are you seeing? That's a strange chart. Let's pull that down because that is definitely not right. What are you seeing in terms of what we're seeing with production and copper growth?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we're really seeing them focus on the copper, copper mines both here and in South America, right? So, they're really trying to take advantage of the electrification theme, and they've been doing a great job. Production figures have been as expected, if not better, and given also the rising underlying commodity prices, they're definitely riding a good wave.
And another earnings result today, Kai, was EOS. It was a sort of standout one. What are we seeing more broadly? Because we've still got these, conflicting concerns about what's happening and really the demand here for defence stocks.
Absolutely, and they're in an EOS is in an interesting space of defense as well. They're definitely on the leading frontier in terms of experimental technology. So, I mean, drone warfare has been around for a couple of years, and we saw, Drone Shield as well as EOS really capture the benefits of that in the Australian market. And they've done pretty well. They've got some pretty solid contracts in the EU as well for EOS. They've successfully acquired Mars, and basically they're just winning more defense contracts. So it looks pretty positive on EOS front, and they raised their guidance as well. So I think they raised their guidance by about 30 million, which is a positive sign. They're fairly confident that they'll hit that in the second half of the year, and I think that's really the market reacting to say that the management is actually fairly confident that they will hit above target for the rest of the year. So it's all fairly positive. From the technology front, there are other technologies that they actually do in regards to space. But I think from a commercialization standpoint, it's definitely the counter drone defense systems that they're profiting off.
Have you been surprised at the resilience of the corporate landscape? I mean, we often talk about the cockroaches coming out at this pointy end of reporting season, but as you say, today was one of the really solid days. Tomorrow we've got a lot too. We've got the likes of, I think, Domino's, we've got Flight Centre, we've got Lovisa, I think we've got Woolworths tomorrow as well, don't we? There's so many still to come. But overall, have you been surprised at how good this earnings season's been?
Yeah, I actually can't remember too many of the really, really bad ones from, in terms of reporting that's been catastrophic, right? So, I mean, compared to a previous couple of seasons where, there's always one or two large ones that stand out, it's generally been very positive in terms of reporting. So, most of them have hit guidance. And yeah, I mean, of course, there's a couple outliers, but I think generally it's actually been very positive.
All right, we'll leave you there. I know it's a really busy time for you, Kai. We appreciate your insights as always. Kai Chen there from MPC Markets. And speaking of the stock specifics today, it was a bit of a small cap session, I guess you could call it, on the call. The stock of the day was ARB Corporation, and we heard from our experts Francesco Destratus from Ord Minnett, Luke Winchester from Merewether Capital.
Is a result that goes to show reporting season's all about expectations and results relative to that, because headline numbers, as they have been for ARB for a few reports now, are pretty underwhelming. I mean, revenue down about 4%, that underlying net profit down about 10%, but it's all relative to that chart we've got up on the screen. The share price has certainly, factored in all of this weakness through the consumer, through the sort of shift away from your Fords and Toyotas to, in particular, the BYD Shark is taking a lot of market share.
Look, it is discretionary spending. It's all about four-wheel drives, I suppose. There is bits and pieces hanging off the edges, but having sales internationally, and we saw last year they hit record sales, but didn't do much for the share price last year, and sales are a bit lower this year, but that was due to the first half. I think the market's looking past it and going, well, international sales in discretionary spending might pick up a bit.
All right, well, as we mentioned, a positive session. Let's have a look at some of the leaders that got us there. Electro-optic systems up 22%, ARB up by almost 12%, Ansell had a good day as well, Suncorp up more than 7%, and Drone Shield firmer by 7%. The laggards included Monadelphous, Liontown Resources, Ora Banda Mining, PLS, and Elevra Lithium, so quite a big lithium theme there. The small end of town, Encounter Resources, Paradigm, High Pages, Pilbara Gold, and Gateway Mining, while the laggards included Regal Asian Investment, Eureka, and Felix Gold. All right, tonight we've got US consumer confidence for August, US home sales for July, and a few earnings as well, including Zoom. I'm sure lots of people will be joining the Zoom call for that one. All right, tomorrow we have Woolworths, a very busy day. WiseTech, Domino's, Steadfast, Netwealth, Sandfire Resources, Lovisa, so many. We are going to be speaking to quite a few of the executives as well, so be sure to be switched on to AusBiz for that. Particularly, we'll be speaking to Drone Shield as well, which will be interesting. And the CPI data for July, of course, coming through as well. Let's recap where the market finished the day's session. It was a positive one. The CBO 200 there finishing higher by 0.75%. The S&P ASX 200 up 0.7%, 62 points, 9,164, so back above the 20-day moving average. Another very busy day on the reporting calendar tomorrow. We'll catch you live from 9:45 a.m. Eastern. See you then.